A perfect beginning or a warning. The golden morning light streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Amira's bedroom, bathing everything in a soft glow. The scent of fresh jasmine, her favorite flower, wafted in from the open balcony doors, blending with the faint aroma of vanilla from the scented candle on her nightstand. It was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. Every detail had been meticulously planned, every moment rehearsed in her mind. But something felt off. Amira lay still in bed, staring at the delicate lace veil draped over her vanity chair. It was a beautiful, intricate design, handmade by her grandmother, who had always believed in the magic of weddings. A bride must listen to the whispers of fate, her grandmother used to say. Because love isn't just about choice. Sometimes, destiny has a louder voice. Amira wanted to believe in that sentiment. She wanted to believe that her wedding to Daniel was meant to be. But an uneasy feeling had taken root in her chest, one that she couldn't quite explain. She chalked it up to pre-wedding nerves. After all, she was about to marry the man she loved, a successful lawyer with a kind heart and a captivating smile. She took a deep breath and forced herself to shake off the doubts. "Today is my day," she whispered to herself. As if sensing her mood, a soft whine came from the foot of her bed. She turned to see Coda, her loyal golden retriever, gazing at her with deep brown eyes, filled with something close to worry. He had been unusually restless for the past few days, pacing the house at night, barking at unseen shadows. "Don't tell me you're nervous too, buddy," Amira murmured, scratching behind his ears. Coda let out a low growl, not aggressive, but filled with a kind of tension Amira rarely heard from him. It sent a small shiver down her spine. Before she could dwell on it, a knock sounded at her door. "Amira, are you awake?" It was her best friend, Liana. Amira smiled, grateful for the distraction. "Come in." Liana stepped inside, a steaming cup of tea in one hand and a garment bag in the other. Her bright eyes sparkled with excitement, but the moment she looked at Amira, her smile faltered. "You look worried," Liana observed, setting the tea down. Amira hesitated before shaking her head. "Just nervous. It's a big day." Liana didn't seem convinced, but she didn't push. Instead, she unzipped the garment bag, revealing Amira's wedding dress, an exquisite ivory gown with delicate lace embroidery and a flowing train. It was perfect in every way, just like she had imagined since she was a little girl. "Let's get you into this before your mom comes in here and starts crying all over again," Liana teased. Amira laughed, the tension in her chest loosening slightly. As they began preparing for the ceremony, Coda remained at the foot of the bed, watching every move with intense focus. The ceremony begins. Hours later, the grand hall of the estate was filled with guests. Rows of white chairs adorned with pink roses lined the aisle, leading up to the floral arch where Daniel stood, waiting. He looked sharp in his tailored navy blue suit, his dark hair perfectly styled. But as Amira took her place at the entrance, her heart pounded. She searched Daniel's face, trying to steady herself. His expression was unreadable. He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Was she imagining it? The wedding music began. The guests turned, their faces glowing with warmth and admiration as Amira took her first step. The lace train of her dress trailed behind her. The golden candlelight shimmered, making everything feel like a dream. And then, a sudden movement. Coda bolted from his place near the side pews, sprinting toward her with startling speed. Before she could react, he skidded to a stop right in front of her, blocking her path. His posture was rigid, his tail stiff, and a low, urgent growl rumbled from his throat. Gasps filled the hall. The officiant froze mid-sentence. Liana's eyes widened in alarm. "Coda," Amira whispered, confusion lacing her voice. The dog didn't move. He stood firm, his eyes locked onto Daniel. His growl deepened, sending chills through Amira's veins. A nervous chuckle came from the guests. "Guess he's just protective," someone muttered. But Amira knew Coda better than anyone. This wasn't mere protectiveness. He was warning her. Her pulse quickened. She looked at Daniel, searching his face for a reaction. He still smiled, but there was a flicker of something else, something she had never noticed before. Annoyance. Frustration. Coda barked sharply, his body tensed like he was ready to pounce. "Control your dog," Daniel said, his voice a touch too sharp. The unease in Amira's chest exploded into full-blown fear. Coda had never acted this way toward Daniel before. He had always been a friendly dog, trusting and affectionate. So why was he acting like this now? Amira hesitated. Every eye in the room was on her, expecting her to move forward, to ignore the dog and continue toward the altar. But a part of her, the part that had been uneasy all morning, told her to stop. Then, Coda did something that shocked everyone. He lunged, not at Daniel, but toward the hem of Amira's gown, tugging it with a desperate urgency. His eyes burned with an intensity she had never seen before. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The officiant took a cautious step forward. "Amira." Liana's voice was soft but firm. "Something's not right." Amira swallowed hard, her heart thudding in her chest. She had two choices. She could ignore the warning, tell herself that she was being paranoid, and continue the ceremony. Or she could listen to the only creature in the world who had never let her down. Taking a deep breath, Amira made her decision. She reached down, resting a hand on Coda's head. His fur was warm beneath her fingertips, and she felt the steady pulse of his heartbeat. "Coda," she whispered. "What is it?" The dog let out a small whimper and looked toward Daniel. Amira turned, truly seeing Daniel for the first time in weeks. And then she saw it. A flicker of something in his eyes, a glimpse of something dark, something hidden beneath the mask of charm. Her breath caught in her throat. The whispers of fate. They had been there all along. And now, standing at the altar, with Coda refusing to let her move forward, she finally understood. Something was terribly, terribly wrong. The truth beneath the surface. A heavy silence fell over the ceremony hall. The guests, who had moments ago been beaming with joy, were now shifting in their seats, whispering in hushed tones. The music had stopped. The air was thick with tension. Amira could feel the weight of every single stare on her, but her entire focus was on Coda. His fur bristled, his body tense like a coiled spring. His eyes remained locked onto Daniel, unwavering, unblinking. And then the moment stretched, just long enough for Amira to see something flicker in Daniel's expression. It was only for a second, a flash of irritation, his lips pressing together a little too tightly, his nostrils flaring in barely concealed frustration. But that second was enough. Amira had spent 2 years loving this man, 2 years planning a future with him. Yet, standing here, she realized something unsettling. She had never seen him lose control before. Daniel was always composed, always measured, always perfectly calculated in his words and actions. But now, there was something different in his face, something just beneath the surface. And Coda saw it first. "Amira," Daniel said, his voice careful, soft, but there was an edge to it. "What's going on?" "It's just the dog. Let's move on." His words, meant to reassure, only made her more uneasy. Liana took a step forward from her spot near the front row. Her eyes flickered from Coda to Amira. "Amira," she said gently, "you don't have to do anything you're not sure about." It was a lifeline, a reminder that she had a choice. But before she could respond, her mother, Sophia, stood up from the first row. "This is ridiculous," she said, smoothing the lace on her dress. "Amira, sweetheart, everyone's waiting. Just let the dog go." Coda's growl deepened, a guttural warning. The room felt like it was closing in on her. Amira glanced at Daniel again. He forced a smile, but the irritation in his eyes was still there. Her fingers trembled slightly as she reached down, resting them on Coda's head. The dog let out a soft whimper, and tugged at the hem of her gown again, urgently, insistently. "Amira." Daniel's voice was firmer now. "Are you seriously going to let a dog ruin our wedding?" Ruin our wedding. The words struck her like a cold gust of wind. Shouldn't he be more concerned about why Coda was acting like this? Shouldn't he be asking what was wrong? Something inside Amira shifted. She straightened her spine and took a step back. The collective gasp from the guests was almost deafening. "Amira," her mother's voice held a note of warning. But Amira ignored her. She had spent too long ignoring the small warnings in her own heart, brushing aside the nagging doubts that had crept in over the past few months. Daniel had always been wonderful, charming, successful, thoughtful, but there had been moments, little moments, when something had felt off. A look in his eyes when he thought no one was watching. A comment that seemed perfectly normal on the surface, but left a strange feeling in her gut. The way he always steered conversations in his favor, the way he made her feel guilty for questioning things. She had written it off as stress, wedding jitters, overthinking. But Coda wasn't overthinking. Coda, the dog who had been by her side for years, who had sensed when she was sick before she even knew, who had comforted her on sleepless nights. Coda was reacting to something real, and she couldn't ignore it anymore. Taking a deep breath, Amira turned to Daniel. "I need to talk to you. Alone." A muscle in his jaw twitched. He exhaled sharply, but then his face softened into an understanding expression. The perfect groom. "Of course," he said. "Let's step outside." She didn't miss the way his fingers clenched slightly before he released them. Lyanna moved toward Amira, as if ready to follow, but Amira shook her head. "Just us." Coda's ears perked up, his body tensed, as if he didn't want her to go. She crouched and whispered to him, "It's okay, boy. Stay here." Coda whined, but didn't follow as she and Daniel stepped through the large wooden doors and into the dimly lit corridor of the estate. The moment the doors shut behind them, Daniel turned to her. "What the hell was that?" he asked, his voice dropping its carefully controlled tone. Amira froze. She had never heard him speak like that before. Not once. Her heart pounded. I don't know," she admitted, swallowing hard. "Coda, he's never acted this way before. I need a moment." Daniel ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. "Amira, this is insane. We have an entire room full of people waiting for us. This wedding, our wedding, has taken months to plan. Do you realize how this looks?" The words stung. Not because he was right, but because his focus wasn't on her feelings. It was on appearances. Amira's fingers curled into the fabric of her gown. She hesitated. "Daniel, do you love me?" His head snapped up. "What kind of question is that? Just answer me." He blinked, caught off guard. Then he let out a short laugh, but there was no humor in it. "Of course I love you, Amira. That's why we're here, isn't it?" But something about the way he said it, it felt like a script, a response he knew he was supposed to say, rather than something he truly meant. A deep pit formed in her stomach. Then, before she could say another word, her phone buzzed in her pocket. A message. She hesitated, then pulled it out, her fingers shaking slightly as she unlocked the screen. The text was from an unknown number, and what she read made her blood run cold. "Don't marry him. You don't know who he really is." Her breath hitched. A cold chill swept over her. Her fingers gripped the phone so tightly her knuckles turned white. She looked up at Daniel, but he was watching her carefully, his expression unreadable. Did he know? Did he send the message himself, trying to manipulate her? Or was someone trying to warn her? The world felt like it was spinning beneath her feet. She looked back at the wedding hall doors, knowing that on the other side was Coda, her loyal companion, the only one who had sensed something was wrong before she even realized it herself. And suddenly she knew. She couldn't go back in there. She couldn't marry him. She turned to Daniel, lifting her chin, her voice steady even as her heart pounded. "I can't do this." His expression darkened instantly. "What?" "I can't marry you," she repeated, stronger this time. Daniel's face twisted into something she had never seen before: anger, disbelief, something almost dangerous. And then, in a voice so quiet it sent shivers down her spine, he whispered, "You'll regret this, Amira." She took a step back, fear gripping her chest. And at that exact moment, the doors to the wedding hall burst open. Coda came barreling through, straight toward her, as if he knew, as if he had always known. Shadows of the past. The moment the doors to the wedding hall burst open, time seemed to slow. Coda charged toward Amira like a bolt of lightning, his golden fur rippling under the dim hallway lights. His eyes locked onto her, his expression frantic, not aggressive, but desperate. Behind him, gasps and murmurs echoed from the wedding guests still inside the hall. "Amira," her mother's voice rang out, filled with confusion and frustration. "Amira, what's going on?" Lyanna was running after Coda, her heels clicking against the marble floor. But Amira couldn't focus on any of it. Not the whispers, not the bewildered faces of her guests, not the sharp glare of her mother, or the stunned expression of her father. All she saw was Daniel, standing before her, his mask slipping for the first time. The moment she had said, "I can't do this," something had cracked in him. The charming, composed, well-mannered Daniel, the man she had thought she was going to spend the rest of her life with, was gone. In his place stood someone cold, calculating, someone she did not recognize. "You'll regret this," he had said, and those words were still ringing in her ears when Coda reached her, pressing his body against her legs as if shielding her from something unseen. And maybe, something very real. Amira took a slow, shaky breath, trying to gather her thoughts. "Amira," Daniel spoke again, softer this time, his voice smooth, like honey laced with poison. "Let's talk about this rationally. You're just overwhelmed. It's the wedding pressure, that's all. Come on." He reached out to take her hand. Coda growled, the sound deep and menacing. Daniel froze. Lyanna finally caught up, her face flushed as she stared between them. She took one look at Daniel's expression, then at Amira's trembling hands, and something in her eyes darkened with concern. "Amira," she said, stepping closer, "what's really going on?" Amira didn't answer right away. Because the truth was, she didn't fully know. She had ignored the small warnings before, but now they were glaring, undeniable. The way Coda had reacted, the way Daniel's mask had slipped, the mysterious text message from an unknown number. "Don't marry him. You don't know who he really is." A shiver ran down her spine. She tightened her grip on Coda's fur, grounding herself. She hesitated, trying to find the right words. "I don't think I know Daniel as well as I thought I did." Daniel let out a short laugh, but there was no humor in it. "Amira, this is insane. We've been together for 2 years. What are you even talking about?" Amira met his gaze. "I want to know the truth." His expression flickered, but he recovered quickly. "The truth? About what?" "About you," she said firmly. "Who you really are." A pause. And then, a slow, almost imperceptible smirk curled at the edges of his lips. Something in his demeanor shifted, like a man who had been playing a role for far too long, and was suddenly tired of keeping up the act. "You want the truth, Amira," he murmured, his voice dangerously low. Coda let out another growl, pressing himself more firmly against Amira, as if sensing something dark curling beneath the surface. Daniel exhaled through his nose, tilting his head slightly as he studied her, his eyes calculating. "I've spent 2 years being everything you wanted. Everything your family wanted. The perfect man. The perfect future." Amira's breath caught in her throat. "And for what?" His voice was almost amused now. "For you to humiliate me in front of everyone. To let a Dan dog dictate your decisions. A chill crawled up her spine. This was not the man she had fallen in love with. Or maybe this had always been him, and she was only now seeing it. Her fingers clenched in Coda's fur. "You're scaring me," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel's eyes darkened. "Maybe you should be scared." A sharp gasp came from Liana. "That's enough," Liana snapped, stepping between them. Her protective instinct flared to life. "Amira, we're leaving." Daniel's smirk disappeared. His jaw tightened. "Leaving," he repeated. Liana's stance was firm. "Yes. Right now." For the first time, Daniel's carefully controlled anger cracked. His hands clenched into fists, and for the briefest second, Amira saw something terrifying flash in his eyes, something possessive. "You think you can just walk away from this?" he hissed. A wave of nausea rolled through Amira. She didn't know this man. She never had. But she was about to. Because before she could respond, before she could take even one step back, her phone buzzed again. Another message. "He's not who he says he is. Get out. Now." And this time, the sender wasn't unknown. It was from an old number, one she hadn't seen in almost 2 years. One she had deleted from her contacts, but never forgot. The name flashed across her screen like a ghost from the past. Ethan. Her blood turned ice cold. Because Ethan had been Daniel's best friend, and he had disappeared without a trace 1 year ago. The man behind the mask. A heavy silence filled the hallway. Amira's fingers trembled as she stared at the name on her phone screen. Ethan. A man who had once been Daniel's closest friend. A man who had suddenly vanished from their lives 1 year ago without any explanation. And now he was sending her a message, warning her. Coda let out another deep growl, his body rigid beside her. Liana's eyes flicked between Amira's face and Daniel's tightening jaw. "What is it?" Liana whispered urgently. Amira couldn't tear her gaze away from the screen. Daniel took a slow step forward, his entire demeanor shifting. Less frustrated groom. More. Something else. "You need to put that phone down," he said, his voice eerily calm. Her breath hitched. She knew in that moment that Daniel had seen the message. He knew. And for the first time since she had met him, she saw something true in his expression. Fear. It was fleeting, a fraction of a second, but it was there. Liana must have noticed it too because she immediately took Amira's arm. "We need to go. Now." Daniel's entire face darkened. "Amira, don't do this." She had 2 choices. She could hand over the phone, pretend like she hadn't seen the message, and continue this twisted charade. Or she could run. Amira swallowed hard. Her decision had already been made. She turned sharply, gripping Coda's leash. Liana followed instantly. "Amira." Daniel's voice was sharp, a blade slicing through the air. But she didn't stop. She ran. She didn't care about the gasps of wedding guests still seated inside the hall. She didn't care about the murmurs of confusion or the stares of family members who were watching their picture-perfect ceremony fall apart. All she cared about was getting away from him. She heard footsteps behind her, too fast, too close. "Daniel." "Amira, stop." His voice was no longer calm. It was desperate, angry, panicked. Coda suddenly whipped around and lunged. Daniel skidded to a stop as Coda barked viciously, snapping his teeth just inches away from him. Liana yanked open the nearest door. "Come on." Amira sprinted through the exit, the cool evening air hitting her skin. She didn't stop running. Not even when she heard Daniel curse behind her. Not even when she heard the sound of heavy footsteps storming after them. She only stopped when she reached her car. Fumbling with the keys, her hands shaking, she ripped open the door and climbed inside. Liana was right beside her, Coda jumping into the backseat. She jammed the key into the ignition. The engine roared to life. Daniel reached the parking lot just as she slammed the car into drive. And then, she sped away. She didn't look back. She couldn't. The warning. Amira didn't stop driving until they reached Liana's apartment, far away from the wedding venue, far away from Daniel. Her entire body was trembling as she stepped out of the car. Kota pressed against her legs, grounding her, his warm presence a reminder that she was safe. For now. Liana fumbled with her keys, opening the door. "Come inside. You're not going home tonight." Amira nodded wordlessly. Once inside, she sank onto the couch, her wedding dress pooling around her like a fallen dream. Liana sat beside her, still catching her breath. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, Amira's phone buzzed again. She flinched. Another message from Ethan. "You're safe for now, but he's going to come after you." Her stomach turned. She quickly typed a reply. "Who are you? Where have you been?" The response was almost instant. "I tried to warn you before, but he got to me first. He knew I was getting too close to the truth, so he made me disappear." Her fingers trembled. "What truth? Who is Daniel?" The typing bubble appeared, then stopped. Then, finally, "He's not Daniel. That's not even his real name." A chill shot down her spine. Liana peered over her shoulder. "What does that mean?" Amira's heart pounded as another message came through. "He's done this before, Amira. You weren't the first." Her blood turned to ice. Before she could process it, a sharp knock echoed through the apartment. Kota snapped his head toward the door, his ears standing tall, a deep growl building in his throat. Amira and Liana froze. Another knock, harder this time. A slow, sinking dread filled Amira's chest. Then, a voice. "Amira, open the door." Daniel, unmasking the monster. The knocking at the door grew louder, more insistent. "Amira, open the door." Daniel's voice was calm, eerily steady, but there was an unmistakable edge to it, something dark simmering beneath the surface. Kota's growl deepened, his body tense like a predator ready to strike. His instincts had been right from the beginning. Amira's heart pounded as she exchanged a panicked look with Liana. "What do we do?" Liana whispered, gripping her phone tightly, ready to call the police. Amira took a shaky breath. "We don't open it. We don't say a word." Another knock, harder this time. "I know you're in there, Amira." Her fingers clenched around her phone. Her mind was racing. How had he found them so fast? Had he followed them from the wedding? Had he tracked her phone? And more importantly, what did he want? She turned back to her screen, Ethan's last message staring back at her. "You weren't the first." Her breath hitched. There had been others. And Daniel, if that was even his real name, had erased them. She didn't have time to process that horrifying thought. Because outside, Daniel's patience was running thin. The knocking stopped. Silence. Then, Thuti. The door shook violently, as if someone had thrown their full weight against it. Liana gasped. Kota barked loudly, snapping his teeth toward the door. "Amira." Daniel's voice was low now, almost coaxing. "You don't want to do this." Amira pressed a hand over her mouth, forcing herself to stay quiet. Her phone buzzed again. "Ethan. He's unpredictable when he's cornered. Do not engage. Call the police." She nodded to Liana. And Liana wasted no time dialing. "Yes, we need police immediately," she whispered into the phone. "There's an intruder at my apartment. He's trying to break in." Daniel must have heard her, because suddenly the knocking stopped completely. Silence. A long, unsettling pause. Then, footsteps, retreating. Amira dared to take a shaky breath. Had he left? Liana kept the phone pressed to her ear, relaying the situation to the dispatcher. Amira, unable to shake the sense of dread curling in her stomach, carefully crept toward the window, keeping her movements light. She peeked through the blinds. Daniel was standing in the street. He wasn't leaving. He was just watching. Even in the dim glow of the streetlights, she could see the rage in his posture, the cold, calculating stare as he waited. Then, his lips moved. No sound, no voice, but Amira could read them perfectly. This isn't over. A chill shot down her spine. She backed away from the window, swallowing hard. A few minutes later, flashing red and blue lights filled the street. Varied truths. The police searched the area, but by the time they arrived, Daniel had disappeared into the night. Lyanna gave her statement. Amira, still trembling, did the same. But she knew deep down there was no real evidence against Daniel. He hadn't broken in. He hadn't made direct threats. But she knew. She knew what he was capable of. After the officers left, Lyanna placed a firm hand on Amira's shoulder. "You're not staying alone. We'll figure this out, but you're not going anywhere by yourself, okay?" Amira nodded numbly. She glanced at her phone. Ethan's messages were still there, waiting for her. Taking a deep breath, she typed, "Tell me everything." A few moments passed. Then, Ethan responded, "It's not safe to text. Video call me." Amira hesitated, but she had come too far to back down now. She hit the call button. The screen flickered, and then a grainy, dimly lit image appeared. Ethan. But he didn't look like the man she remembered. His once polished appearance was gone. His face was tired, thinner. His eyes were sharp, darting around as if he expected someone to be watching. "Amira," he said, his voice hoarse. "You have no idea what you just escaped from." She swallowed. Tell me who he really is." Ethan let out a slow, unsteady breath. "His name isn't Daniel Carter. That's just one of his many identities. He's done this before, charming, successful women, getting close to them, making them trust him." Amira's hands clenched into fists. "And then what?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Then they disappear." A sharp breath escaped her lips. Ethan continued, his voice low and urgent. "He's meticulous. He changes identities. He leaves no trace. I started digging into him last year, and when I got too close, he shook his head. He made sure I couldn't warn anyone." "How?" Lyanna cut in, her face pale. Ethan's expression hardened. "He set me up." "What?" Amira whispered. Ethan rubbed a hand over his face. "He framed me for fraud, fabricated evidence. The police got involved. I had no choice. I had to disappear." Amira's stomach twisted. She had loved this man, and he had been living a lie. "He's dangerous, Amira," Ethan warned. "You humiliated him in front of everyone today. That means he's going to come after you. He won't stop until he controls the narrative again." Amira's breath came fast, uneven. "He was at my door," she whispered. Ethan's expression darkened. "Then you don't have time. You need to go off the grid. Now." Amira felt the weight of those words sink deep into her bones. Daniel wasn't just a liar. He was a predator. And now, she was his next target. The final stand. Amira sat frozen, Ethan's warning still ringing in her ears. "You don't have time. You need to go off the grid. Now." Her breath came fast, shallow. Lyanna was staring at the screen in shock, her knuckles white, as she gripped the edge of the couch. Koda, ever protective, rested his massive head on Amira's lap, his body tense as if he, too, understood the gravity of the situation. "Go off the grid." Lyanna finally found her voice. "What does that even mean? She can't just vanish." Ethan's expression was grim. "If you stay put, he'll find you. He always does." Amira clenched her fists. "You keep saying that, but why? Why does he do this? What does he get out of it?" Ethan hesitated. Then he spoke. "Control. Silence." Ethan continued, his voice steady but filled with weight. "It's never about love for him. It's about winning. He picks strong, intelligent women, successful, independent, respected. He makes them trust him, convinces them he's everything they've ever wanted. And when they're at their most vulnerable," Ethan exhaled, "he breaks them." Amira felt a shudder crawl down her spine. He isolates them, manipulates them, and if they resist, if they try to leave, he makes sure no one hears from them again. Ethan's eyes darkened. I traced 3 different women before you, Amira. All of them had promising careers, loving families. Then one day, they just disappeared. Their families reported them missing, but nothing ever stuck to him. He always had an alibi, always played the grieving fiancé, the devastated boyfriend. And somehow, the investigations always hit a dead end. Lyanna sucked in a sharp breath. Oh my God. Amira gritted her teeth, her nails digging into her palms. And you think that's what he was planning for me? Ethan's silence was answer enough. Her stomach churned. She had come this close to walking down that aisle, this close to marrying a man who had been planning her downfall from the beginning. No, she refused to be his next victim. She would not disappear. Okay, she said, standing up suddenly. I'm done running. Lyanna gaped at her. Amira, what? She turned to Ethan, jaw set. You said I have to disappear. No, he does. I won't live in fear, and I won't let him get away with this again. Ethan studied her carefully. You want to fight back? Damn right I do. Lyanna rubbed her temples. Okay, I love you, but do you have a plan? Because Daniel is clearly some kind of criminal mastermind, and we're just 2 women with a very protective dog. Amira's mind was already working. He's smart, she said. He covers his tracks. He always has an alibi. Yeah, Ethan nodded. That's how he's avoided prison for so long. Then we need to set a trap. We need to catch him doing something he can't explain away. Ethan frowned. That's easier said than done. He'll be more cautious than ever now. He knows you're onto him. That's exactly why we have an advantage, Amira countered. For once, he's reacting instead of controlling the situation. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then, a slow smile crept onto his face. You're a hell of a lot braver than I expected, Amira. She lifted her chin. I'm not just going to be another one of his victims. Lyanna groaned. Oh, we're really doing this, aren't we? Yes, Amira said firmly. We are. The bait. The plan was simple but dangerous. They needed proof. Something tangible that would tie Daniel to his crimes. And the best way to do that, lure him out. Amira sent him a message. I was scared. I panicked. Can we talk? It was the last thing Daniel would expect. It took less than 5 minutes for him to respond. Where are you? Amira stared at the message, her pulse hammering. She had him. Meet me at the old bridge. Midnight. No one else. The old bridge was secluded. No cameras, no witnesses. Perfect for what Daniel thought was an easy reconciliation. But Ethan had already positioned hidden cameras there in advance. They would record everything. And Coda, well, Coda would make sure things didn't get too out of hand. The confrontation. Midnight. Amira stood at the edge of the bridge, the cold night air biting against her skin. Lyanna and Ethan were hidden a few feet away, watching. Then, footsteps. Daniel emerged from the shadows, his face unreadable. You came, he said, his voice smooth as ever. Amira forced herself to stay calm. I had to. He took a slow step forward. I knew you'd regret running. She swallowed hard. You were right. I was just scared. His eyes softened, but she could see it now. The act. The manipulation. Of course you were, he said gently. But we can fix this. She clenched her fists. Can we? Daniel smiled. You love me, Amira. You know we're meant to be together. Her stomach twisted. How many times had he said those words? How many times had other women believed him? Not this time. She lifted her phone. Tell me, Daniel, did you say that to the others too? His smile flickered. What? You know, she said, tilting her head. The other women. The ones who disappeared. His eyes darkened. You don't know what you're talking about. Oh, I think I do. she said. "And so does the camera recording you right now." His face froze. Then, his entire demeanor changed. The mask shattered. His expression twisted into something sharp, predatory. "You think you're smart," he hissed. "You think you can outplay me." Coda growled low and deep. Daniel took a step closer. "You ruined everything, Amira." She didn't move, didn't flinch. "I exposed you," she corrected. "And now, you're done." A sudden sound. Sirens. Daniel spun toward the road just in time to see flashing lights approaching. Panic flashed across his face. "No. You're out of moves," Amira said, stepping back. "Game over." He turned to run, but Coda lunged. The massive golden retriever tackled him to the ground, pinning him with a snarl. Daniel struggled, cursing, but it was over. Within moments, the police were surrounding him, weapons drawn. Ethan stepped out of the shadows, watching as officers dragged Daniel to his feet. "Told you we'd get him." Daniel's furious gaze met Amira's. "This isn't over," he hissed. She smiled. "Oh, it really is." The aftermath. Daniel Carter, or whoever he really was arrested that night. Investigators uncovered his past aliases, the fraudulent records, the missing women. He would never hurt anyone again. And Amira. She walked away. Not just from the wedding. Not just from Daniel. But from the fear. She was free. And Coda. He got the biggest steak dinner of his life.